This video is sponsored by Lost in Cult. Whenever I'm looking for some inspiration, I often find myself reading through old Japanese gaming magazines from the 90s, sifting through a wealth of retro oddities I've never even heard of. Oftentimes, when we look back on gaming in the 90s, we think of all the blockbusters and the big hits, but what about the games that are met with lukewarm reception? The 6 out of 10s? The obscure releases that are otherwise lost to time? These are what I'm drawn to. And so one day, while reading some mid-90s publications, one particular game kept grabbing my attention. Not Treasure Hunter, a cinematic adventure game released for the PS1 on December 20th, 1996, that allegedly boasts over 50 endings. Needless to say, my interest was piqued. The box art only adds to the intrigue. Our dashing hero and heroine stand beneath a chalice with a mysterious blue ooze. There's a skeleton, somebody chanting a prayer, and, of course, an incomprehensible monster up in the left corner. Beautiful art, no doubt, but one that leaves you with far more questions than answers. Perhaps the most baffling of all, however, is the title, Not Treasure Hunter. Assuming the questionable grammar was a sign of good things to come, it didn't take much to convince me to give the game a whirl. This gorgeous artwork that we see once again at the title screen is by the Japanese illustrator Jun Suemi. If you're an RPG fan, there's a very good chance you've already encountered his art before, as he's worked on dozens of series over the years, from Wizardry to Brandish to the Zill-Ol series. His art is a feast for the eyes, and couple that with the booming, heroic music blaring in the background, I pressed the start button and couldn't help but wonder what Not Treasure Hunter was going to throw at me first. And the answer was a 20-second loading screen. The year is 1920, and we're in London, England. Our protagonist, James Arkwright, receives a letter telling him the location of a mysterious cave that's said to hold the treasures of an ancient, lost civilization. Eager to go on an adventure, James researches this further, learning that this cave is feared by all those who live near it. And so, without questioning the letter, who sent it or why, James journeys to the cave to uncover these lost artifacts for himself. But as he narrates all of this to us, he's insistent on one thing. He is not a treasure hunter. James has a personal fascination with ancient history, and goes on these adventures for academic purposes. Treasure hunters, on the other hand, are only in it for the glory, and according to James, it's very important that we understand that distinction. Anyway, with all of that cleared up, it's time to go hunt some treasure. Since this game released in 1996, it plays exactly like how you'd expect a game of this era to. Your movement relies on tank controls as you navigate this mysterious cavern, and of course, this is all presented to you via fixed camera angles. While tank controls can be off-putting to some people, it's thankfully quite forgiving here. You won't be awkwardly bumping into walls or fumbling down narrow hallways, as Not Treasure Hunter instead opts for plenty of open spaces and wide paths. So much so that you end up forgetting it's a tank control game before long. You move faster by double-tapping the button in whatever direction you're moving, which causes James to break out into the most diabolical run cycle you will ever see, whereas pressing the X button brings up the menu. Here you can check your health and ammo, equip weapons, examine any key items you find, and, of course, save your game. Sometimes you'll come across enemies you'll need to fight. Thankfully, James is more than ready for a tussle. You can choose between hand-to-hand combat, availing of 4 different punches and kicks depending on your button input, or if you want to keep some distance, you can whip out your handgun, already loaded with 6 bullets for you to use. Now, this certainly sounds like a pretty good spread, but unfortunately, this is where the cracks in this game begin to show. For starters, the handgun is absolutely useless. You ready up with circle and press R1 to pull the trigger, but unlike its fixed camera angle contemporaries at the time, Not Treasure Hunter doesn't have any auto-aim to help you line up the shot, meaning you have to awkwardly pivot James yourself, pull the trigger, and hope for the best. Try as I might though, I could rarely land a shot. Even if an enemy was standing right in front of me, my bullets would always miss, something that becomes all the more devastating once you realize those 6 bullets you have are the only 6 bullets in the entire game. There's no ammo pickups to be found anywhere, so once your bullets are gone, they're gone. That being said, while James's gun is absolutely pathetic, turns out he is an unstoppable machine when it comes to fisticuffs. Once again, you ready up with circle and can alternate between punching and kicking depending on which of the 4 shoulder buttons you press. But there's really no need to experiment with this at all, because pressing R2 will carry you throughout this entire game. Unlike his other attacks, this kick has incredibly long reach, knocks the enemy back every time, and stuns them for a brief second or two, meaning if you ever need to reposition yourself, you have ample time to do so. There aren't many combat sections in the game as is, and bar one exception, it'll always be a 1v1 battle. Every enemy behaves the exact same too, whether it's a monster or a human, so there's no need to vary your strategy whatsoever. You can very comfortably settle yourself into a corner, kick to your heart's content, and every one of your foes will be stun-locked into oblivion, dead after 5 or 6 kicks. Indeed, the combat is horribly imbalanced here, but thankfully it is balanced in your favour. It objectively fails from a mechanical standpoint, but it's a failing that benefits you, so, you know, silver linings and all that. In fact, Not Treasure Hunter is a game full of silver linings. For every objective flaw you can point out about its design, there's a positive to go along with it. And oftentimes these same flaws end up being very unintentionally funny. For example, they love a good stinger sound effect here, whether or not the situation actually calls for it, often throwing one in when you do something as underwhelming as pressing a button. Other times there'll be no sound effects where there absolutely should be, leading to awkward moments of dead air in what are supposed to be tense action scenes.
わしはこの宝を誰にも渡さん。
If you tread too close to the edge of a cliff, James will fall to his death silently, without even so much as a scream. Even in water, he'll somehow fall to his death, completely defying the concept of buoyancy in the process. My personal favourite is the awkward silence whenever you get a bad ending, with the characters blinking at you as the screen very slowly collapses.
もうお前に用はない。死ね。
This is then followed by a 20-second save screen, and only after all that does the game finally tell you you got a bad ending. Yeah, I half guessed that when I got shot about 2 minutes ago now. Cheers. The loading screens in general are pretty brutal here. They take almost 20 seconds a pop, and you'll be seeing them pretty often because each run of the game only takes 30 to 40 minutes total. If you climb down a ladder while having the sword equipped, James will inexplicably get taller for the rest of the game for no discernible reason. And these are just a handful of the many, many endearing eccentricities to be found in Not Treasure Hunter. So much so that Japanese players have lovingly dubbed it a bakage, literally meaning stupid game, a title awarded only to those games that are absurd and bizarre to the point of being hilarious, whether it's intentional or unintentional. And yet, all jokes aside, there's plenty to love as well. The environments and especially the character models are very detailed, especially when you compare it to other major PS1 releases around the same time that likely had much bigger budgets than this one. The soundtrack is an absolute treat, and easily one of the game's strongest aspects, going for a very grandiose and epic orchestral sound, clearly drawing inspiration from the likes of Indiana Jones. The first major area, a long stretch of craggy cliffs, has a certain sense of nervous anticipation, that feeling of an impossible journey that's only just begun, and so the music has a marching percussion to characterize the unfamiliar uphill battle that lies ahead of you. The combat music, on the other hand, opts for a more energetic and thrilling sound. This is all contrasted with the softer, sweeter melodies while talking to your female allies, with the music having a much more tender touch. You could maybe argue the music is too grandiose for the scenes they're used in, but the quality of the soundtrack is so good that this didn't even cross my mind. Instead, I found myself humming the melodies even days after finishing it. The soundtrack was entirely composed by a man named Kazuyoshi Fujino, known professionally as Silky Fujino, the lead vocalist for the Japanese funk band Human Soul, who disbanded only a few months before the release of this game. Not Treasure Hunter appears to be his first and only foray into video game music, which is a bit of a shame. I can't help but wish he stuck around a bit longer to compose some more soundtracks. That being said, if you're a fan of jazzy, funky melodies, check out Spiral by Human Soul. It's a pretty great tune. Fixed camera angles, tank controls, and gun combat will inevitably draw comparisons to Resident Evil, and understandably so. But interestingly, Not Treasure Hunter and Resident Evil released in the exact same year, with only a few months separating their release dates. No, if anything, Not Treasure Hunter feels more comparable to the original Alone in the Dark games. The tone, colour scheme, and overall atmosphere feel very similar between the two, the combat and their controls are practically identical, and the pirate ship section feels like a less than subtle nod to Alone in the Dark 2 in particular. That being said, where this game deviates massively from its inspirations is its much heavier focus on dialogue. I've not really mentioned any puzzles so far, and that's because there aren't really any. Instead, your main aim is progressing through the areas, fighting the occasional enemy, and before long you'll be rewarded with a cutscene. This game features full voice acting from start to finish, something that was still somewhat rare at this point in gaming history. What's more, there's some real high-flying voice actors in here too. James is voiced by Shuichi Ikeda, most well known for voicing Char Aznable from the Gundam series ever since the 70s, but he's also had roles in plenty of other TV shows and games too, like One Piece, Hunter x Hunter, and Kingdom Hearts. The villain is voiced by fellow Gundam alumni, the late Kaneto Shiozawa, who voiced Mikuve in Mobile Suit Gundam, as well as Rei in the Fist of the North Star series. These two actors are definitely the biggest star power present here, but honestly, every voice actor did a solid job. Video game voice acting was still in its infancy at this point in the 90s. It was unfamiliar and uncharted territory for many developers, so it must have been a pretty big undertaking for ActiArt, a dev team comprised of only 10 people. Despite their small size, they clearly wanted this game to be as cinematic as possible, and their dedication is worthy of praise. They did a pretty great job. During these cutscenes, you'll eventually be given dialogue options. This is the main attraction of Not Treasure Hunter, and the reason why it has over 50 endings at all, as every choice can send you on a totally different branch of the story. For example, early on, you come across a young girl called Lisa being attacked by a lizard monster. She says she got lost here while gathering ingredients and asks for you to escort her back to the entrance. In response, you can either A. oblige, B. find her suspicious and question her further, or C. bluntly refuse and tell her she'll only be a burden. The choice you make here will completely alter the trajectory of your relationship with Lisa thereafter. She'll either continue to be the innocent damsel in distress, or end up double-crossing you later on, or, if you play your cards very poorly, she'll die, each route opening up many different endings to you. Though, as someone who loves to indulge rude or idiotic dialogue options in games just to see what happens, I was so excited to learn that Not Treasure Hunter gives you more than enough opportunities to do so. You can make James a complete idiot if you want to. You come across the remains of an archaeologist who met an untimely death, and you can either pray for them, say that they had it coming, or shrug it off with, "It has nothing to do with me, I don't really care." You can insist on playing dead during a sword fight, right, only for it to completely backfire on you when you get killed anyway. You can walk into a room with a very obvious trap floor and still choose to walk on it and die anyway. You see Lisa getting attacked by the lizard monster and can enthusiastically offer to help the monster instead.
私も仲間に入れてください。おや?
When Lisa is taken hostage, you can either A. hand over your treasure, B. demand that they release Lisa, or C. tell them about the sponsor of today's video. Lost in Cult has now launched World of Horror the board game, a survival RPG based on the wildly popular indie horror game. The regular edition, as well as a variety of beautiful deluxe editions, are now up for pre-order. Alongside the board game, these deluxe editions include the Book of Endings, featuring brand new mysteries written by acclaimed writers such as Hifumi Kono, creator of the Clock Tower series. Also included is a Lighthouse Dice Tower, 3 Soan patches, as well as 5 collectible cards with brand new artwork from legendary Japanese horror artists. You can also get this deluxe edition in the Neo 80s and Shrouded colour variants, or alternatively the Guro edition, which includes hand-signed prints of the new artwork as well. While the standard edition will remain available, you'll have to act fast if you want any of these deluxe editions, because they're only available until April 30th. After that, they're gone forever. Head over to lostincult.co.uk or use the link in the description and use the code tangomushi WOH to get 10% off this brand new World of Horror collection or anything across the entire site. Thank you so much to Lost in Cult for sponsoring this video. Between the sheer amount of dialogue options and branching paths in Not Treasure Hunter, it's a surprisingly complex ending system. But all of this would be soured if you constantly had to start over from scratch every time. Thankfully, this is not the case. For starters, you can pause the game and save absolutely anywhere at any time. This will allow you to save right before a cutscene or major branching point in the story, and experiment with dialogue options stress-free. Then, once you do get an ending and it's time to start over, you have 3 options. You can either start from the very beginning, you can load your aforementioned save, or you can choose a specific area of the game to start in. This system is excellent. Choosing to have over 50 endings is quite ambitious even by modern standards, especially so when it's the major selling point, so building your game around those 50 endings is critical. If the player had to waste time restarting the game over from scratch every single time, there's a good chance they just won't bother. Not Treasure Hunter remedies this by giving you every option you could want, as much or as little control as you'd prefer. It's fantastic, it's intuitive, and as easy as it is to poke fun at certain aspects of this game's design, the ending system is not one of them. To be precise, there are exactly 57 endings in Not Treasure Hunter, spread across 5 potential routes, and all of these routes take the story in drastically different directions. While the first area is always the same no matter what, every area thereafter, as well as the characters, dialogue, and overarching plot lines will change. Which route you end up on is determined by what you do or don't do in that first area. Do you choose to fight your first enemy, or do you ignore him entirely? This will decide whether or not you encounter the treasure hunter Jamie later, a central character in some of the endings. When you encounter the dead body of a past explorer, do you react with sympathy, disgust, indifference, or avoid interacting with it entirely? Near the dead body is a note attached to the wall with a knife. Taking these items with you, or ignoring this room and its contents entirely, will further impact which route you end up on. Now, it needs to be said that while there are technically 57 endings, the vast majority of them are glorified game overs. Picking the wrong dialogue options will usually result in James getting smacked or shot or stabbed in some capacity. There are 15 good endings, but all of them follow the same general formula. James makes it out alive and wins the prize, whether that be Captain Gold's treasure, an ancient mask, or a Amazonian girlfriend in one particular route. Even James's closing monologue is shared across all of the good endings, with the only real difference being the location. Be that as it may, let's walk through the Maya no Humbo, or Mayan tomb route, to get a feel for what a full completed run of Not Treasure Hunter looks like. In order to trigger this route in the first place, we must encounter the lizard but choose not to fight him. No need to worry though, he's not gone for very long, as we soon encounter a woman dressed in all black fighting him, making that 2 times in the span of 5 minutes that this poor lizard has plummeted to his death. The woman introduces herself as Jamie, a treasure hunter. She tells James that she knows a thing or two about the deadly traps lying deeper in the cave, and so given their shared goals to plunder, Jamie suggests that they team up for the rest of their journey, to which James agrees. The two then descend further into the caverns, quickly finding themselves at the entrance to the tomb.
4つの選択では心を選べだわ。
Follow her instruction and choose the heart tile, and James will be riddled with arrows and die. You actually need to pick the diamond tile, and only then can James make it safely to the other side. Before we get a chance to confront Jamie about this though, she's already long gone. In the next room, our lizard friend shows up again for the 3rd and final time. You need to be careful not to take out your handgun here, as it'll cause James to evaporate into thin air, an instant game over. The reason for this is never explained, but hey, no complaints here, since James is more than capable without a gun. Taking him down finally opens the tomb itself, where a large golden chalice lies at the centre. Along the shelves lining the wall are a variety of colourful concoctions, and you can choose to take any of them with you or leave them be. No matter what you do, a dark, shadowy figure will appear behind James and attack him suddenly. The shadow has taken on James's form and brandishes a sword, and an absolutely thrilling fight ensues. It's not worth fighting him anyway, you won't get very far, and running back to the gold chalice gives us a variety of options, from pushing the chalice over, to dunking in the potions we picked up, to fighting the shadow head on. All of these will give you a bad ending, however. Even using the liquids you found, no matter which colour, will result in James dying. The only correct choice is to take out your knife and offer your blood to the chalice directly, which will destroy the dark shadow immediately and reveal a staircase leading underground. Heading downstairs will reveal to us a coffin, and sitting inside the coffin is our treasure, an intricately designed ancient mask. Being the not treasure hunter that he is, James immediately nabs his loot, but doing so causes the tomb to start crumbling. We dart out to safety and immediately come face to face with Jamie once again, surprised to see us alive. She weakly apologises for telling us the wrong solution to the tile puzzle earlier, and suggests leaving the cavern now that we've found the treasure. If it wasn't already obvious, Jamie is shady business, and choosing to trust her at the next dialogue option will quickly result in a backstab, both literally and figuratively. Choose the other option instead, and James will act cold, refusing to hand over the mask and telling her that he's planning on bringing it back to England for research. Jamie isn't happy with that answer, and will quickly raise her blade to him.
そうなの。わかったわ。
言い忘れたが、この部屋では武器を持ってはいけないんだ。もし武器を持つと
持つとどうなるの？
消されてしまうんだよ。持っている人物が。どうやら遅かったようだな。
Despite Jamie being a central character in this route, it's possible to make it this far without ever encountering her at all. When you're attacked by the lizard all the way at the very beginning, don't kill it, don't run away from it, but specifically knock it off the cliff. Something that's a lot harder than it sounds thanks to James being a bit too powerful for his own good. For some reason, Jamie will never show up if you do this, and the entire route will play out the exact same without her. You'd be forgiven for thinking this is some kind of glitch, until you realise the floor tile trap later on even changes to accommodate her absence, so it was clearly an intentional design choice. Instead, you have to deal with sword-wielding statues, but thankfully this is easy, as James is totally impervious to their blades for reasons unknown. Thank you to Usan over on Nico Nico Doga for being the only reason I even learned this alternate route was possible. Regardless of whether Jamie is dead or alive, James will walk out of the tomb with his newly acquired treasure in hand. But it wouldn't be an Indiana Jones romp without a boulder chase sequence. Getting hit by it will obviously result in instant death, and it's even possible to dodge the boulder and trap yourself, leading to a pretty grim bad ending. But as long as you keep moving, you'll avoid it no problem, especially so given it is literally slower than your walking speed. But James isn't out of the woods yet. Just before he makes it to the cave entrance, a man and his cohort of bodyguards stop him in his tracks.
ご苦労だったな。さあ、マヤの仮面を渡してもらおうか。
The man is Karmus, apparently an old-time rival of James, and the closest the game has to a villain. He immediately demands we hand over the mask, and we're given the option to throw it over the cliffside, resulting in a quick death, or don the mask in a fit of desperation, leading to a bad ending where James is ominously possessed by the mask's powers, killing everyone around him. Alternatively, if we hand over the mask, Karmus will be the one to unleash havoc instead.
ジェームズ、これが何なのか知っているか。これは不死身になれる仮面なのだ。弾丸も俺を殺すことはできない。この運動能力を見ろ。俺は無敵になったのだ。
We're given plenty of options here, from whipping out our gun to throwing a knife at him to chickening out and running away, all of which will result in bad endings. The least likely option is, in fact, the correct one. You stand still and wait for him to approach. Karmus will immediately shoot, but James will survive the gunshot thanks to a very conveniently placed pendant sitting in his breast pocket. Realizing he now has the upper hand, he plays dead and bides his time.
Karmusは病院に送られ、私は割れた仮面をイギリスに持ち帰った。仮面の謎について詳しく研究されるだろう。さあ、次なる冒険が私を呼んでいる。
It needs to be said that narratively, this game is incredibly simple. There's no point recounting each of the 5 routes, as they all follow the same narrative structure, whether it's fighting a skeleton pirate or discovering an Amazonian tribe or being trapped in the cave by an ancient spirit. There is, admittedly, no depth at all to any of the dialogue, the villains, their motives, or even James himself. Instead, most characters simply serve as a checklist of blockbuster adventure movie archetypes. There's the damsel in distress, the femme fatale, and a cocky bad guy who's evil for the sake of it, dragging a brigade of suits behind him. The fun of Not Treasure Hunter stems not from complex storytelling, but from its vastness, a seemingly endless web of routes and an invitation to experiment with them as much as possible to see how many endings you can get. Imagine how it must have felt booting this up in 1996. Imagine how exciting it must have been to know every choice impacted your experience. This is back in a time when there were no YouTube walkthroughs or game guides, but instead you'd write everything down on a notepad. And, to be honest, you'd certainly need a hell of a lot of notes for this one. The story is serviceable at best, sure, but the story isn't the point. The fun lies in how you get there. It was always an exciting feeling when I'd walk into a brand new area and realise I'd finally found another route. And I think that feeling of satisfaction is exactly what they were going for. Indeed, the vast number of endings are what you come here for. So much so that ActiArt posited a challenge to players who were dedicated to seeing every one. According to the game manual, you unlock a special ending after seeing all the other 57 endings in the game, and at the end of that secret ending is a password. The first 200 people to send this password via mail to ActiArt's HQ in Osaka back in the day would receive a custom-made relief of completion, as well as an illustrated tapestry by Jun Suemi. The the creator of the game's gorgeous cover art. The next 800 people would receive just the illustrated tapestry, which is still a pretty sweet deal. Even though 30 years have passed, I was eager to see if any record or photographs of these elusive reliefs and tapestries existed anywhere on the internet, but sadly there are none. Between the sheer number of endings in this game, the painfully long loading screens, and Not Treasure Hunter's weak sales overall, it's hard to know if these prizes even made it to the point of manufacture, especially so given Acti Art's closure shortly after the game's release. Tragic as this may be, the very existence of a secret ending was enough to convince me to track down every one of those 57 endings just so I could see it for myself. An endeavour that sounds a lot worse on paper if not for the very generous save system. Even so, this still required 70 full runs of the game across a few sessions of play, but the end reward was more than worth it. After you see the final ending, the usual credit sequence will be swapped out for camcorder footage showing the Acti Art offices during development, every one of the 10-man dev team giving a wave as we see them working, programming, or just messing around. Between the shaky camera footage and the big smiles all around, there's something so endearing about this ending. It's easily one of my favourite Easter eggs I've found in a game in a long time. I love when developers show behind the scenes of the everyday office life during the months upon months of development, showing you the humans behind the art you're playing. It's always a treat, especially since you don't often see this kind of thing in the modern gaming world anymore. Even if Not Treasure Hunter was a bit of a flop commercially, it looks like Acti Art had a really fun time making it, and it's sweet that those memories have been preserved forever in the game itself. I hope all of these guys are doing good. As the secret ending draws to a close, the credits display a keyword, Otto soreja anta. This is the password players were asked to send to Acti Art's headquarters to win prizes. And while that ship has long sailed, I was left confused by what the keyword actually meant. Otto soreja anta is a broken, nonsensical sentence in Japanese, meaning something along the lines of, oops, well, you. It's absolute gibberish, and I started wondering if it was some kind of phrase I'd never heard before in my life, until it clicked. It's a play on the title. Not Treasure Hunter in Japanese is Notto toreja hanta. Otto soreja anta. Acti Art, you sly dogs. Despite a lot of promotion in gaming magazines back in the day highlighting its movie-like realism, Not Treasure Hunter ended up being Acti Art's first and only game release before they shut down. A lot of the budget was spent on big league voice actors and advertising, so the middling sales likely weren't enough to turn a profit, especially given that Tomb Raider released in Japan only a month later. If people wanted an Indiana Jones kick, they probably went and played that instead. Not Treasure Hunter has since faded into obscurity, but it's still fondly remembered by pockets of people in Japanese retro gaming circles, partially for its hilarious dialogue, but also for its ending system, one that's ambitious and imaginative, especially for an early PS1 release. Lizard kicking and my reward after 57 endings being a dad joke is not exactly what I expected going into this game, but I am so glad that it turned out that way. Not Treasure Hunter is not perfect game, but it made me laugh. It's fun, and that's all that matters. Hey, thank you so much for watching the video. I hope you enjoyed checking out this strange little PS1 gem with me. If you're looking for more to watch, feel free to check out my second channel, Tangomushi, where I upload first playthroughs of retro and indie games just like this one. You can also catch these playthroughs live over on Twitch every week as well. If you'd like to support the channel directly, you can subscribe to my Patreon for as low as $2 a month. Doing so gets you extra goodies like early video previews, game reviews, and behind-the-scenes content that I don't post anywhere else. Thank you so much again for watching, and I will see you in the next one. Bye bye.